we're live. All right, guys, I'll let you guys kind of log in for a little bit, kind of get on here, and then we'll jump into some of the latest research. I'll kind of give you a little overview of what we've been doing the past couple of weeks, and then we'll jump into some research that we're working on, and then talk a little bit about the N8 challenge. So I'll let everyone kind of jump on, invite some people to come hang out. Hey Jessica, how are you? Stephanie, hi, how are you? Hey guys, when you jump on, just say hi or tell us where you're coming from, and I'd love to see I always love to know where everyone's coming from. It's really, really cool. Caden, my man, what's up, brother? Very, very cool. All right, guys, I'll start in about a minute, and we'll kind of jump into a lot of really, really cool stuff. Really just dive into some Q&A after that. Keto and 8, I love it. Starting very, very soon, guys. I'm so excited about that starting up, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today. Ron, me too, man. Me too. Super excited about it. Wisconsin. Very, very cool. All right, guys, so while everyone's kind of jumping on, I'll kind of give you a little brief recap of what's been crazy. I hope I don't look too sleep deprived. So we flew out to FitCon, saw some of you guys at FitCon. It was an incredible event. We talked about the 5 biggest things that we're learning about and studying in our lab right now. A lot of them centering around the ketogenic diet and exogenous ketones and everything that you guys are talking about each and every day. And then straight from there, we flew to Brazil, and we spoke to a huge crowd in Brazil. And to be honest, guys, because of what you guys are doing, and I mean this wholeheartedly, because of the message that you guys are getting out there, it is not just a national message. This is international. It is international, and the crowd in Brazil knew exactly who Pruvit was, knew exactly what exogenous ketones were, and we were talking to a crowd of over 1,500 people who were enthusiastic, super excited about the ketogenic diet, all of its application, and what it can really do. And so it's just a huge kudos to you guys and I hope you guys understand that your message isn't just national, it is literally global, and it's going beyond what any of us could have ever imagined in getting the information out there. So I'm super excited about that. And then we came back, and then yesterday had a great meeting in Dallas at the labs, met with Chris Harding, and had really good meetings there to kind of tidy some stuff up, potentially talk about some new stuff that I might hint at a little bit later. But yeah, guys, it's just been a crazy week of travel. Super excited, and appreciate you guys for jumping on. Before we kind of jump into the Q&A, I want to touch on some cool new things that I've seen, at least over the past couple of days, and some really groundbreaking research that I actually just got back yesterday that I want to share with you guys today. One of the things I saw was a brand new study came out, and this was super interesting for me. Brand new study came out, and they looked at kids. And they looked at kids who were playing soccer. And when we think about traumatic brain injury, because this is a big interest of mine and a lot of where I see a lot of my future research going into, they looked at kids throughout a soccer season. And when you look at like reaction time in the beginning of a soccer season, they looked at reaction time of all these different kids. Over the course of the season, they tracked the kids' reaction time, but they also tracked how many headers, or like how many times they headed the ball, so to speak. And what they found was that the kids who had more headers over time, over the course of throughout this season, their reaction time got slower. And so what they're indicating with that research is saying that we often think about like concussions and traumatic brain injury really stemming from football and big contact sports, but even things like soccer, like even just minor efforts with hitting a ball in soccer can have a significant impact on reaction time, and that's in kids. So what can that mean over time, and how we're kind of talking about using alternative strategies to provide fuel, because ketones are a fuel source for the brain. There's a lot of potential application in that realm, and it excites me beyond belief. I talked to you guys last time about some of the work that we're about to start with the NFL, incorporating in exogenous ketones and the ketogenic diet and a whole lifestyle with them, with individuals who are suffering with traumatic brain injury. But that kind of new study that just came out really fascinated me in a sense that that's kids, and they're having problems clearly with their reaction time over just a course of one season. Now, what about kids that have been playing for 10, 15, 20 years? How does that add up? And that's something that I'm super fascinated about, and hopefully that we can get a lot more research done. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about was some brand new data that we got back that I think will excite you guys beyond belief. So at the event, we talked to you guys that we're doing a lifelong study, right? We're doing a study where we're taking animals, and we have 3 conditions. We have one condition who is on a Western diet, like a traditional Western diet. Another condition who's on a Western diet plus supplemental ketones. They're using the ketones that are in the formula. Then we have a third condition that is a ketogenic diet. So 3 different conditions: Western diet, a Western diet plus exogenous ketones, and a ketogenic diet. Well, in pharmaceutical research, like when you're talking like pharmaceutical and drugs and that kind of application, they do something what's known as an LD50. So what they do is they basically determine at what point in that animal's life, when they take that product or when they take that drug, at what point do 50% of them die, right? And that's when they determine, okay, this is when it's safe. This is when it's good to go. Well, we looked at the Western diet, right? And so just a traditional Western diet, and half of the animals, which is quote unquote the LD50 for the Western diet, died at 12 months. And so that's like to put it in perspective for an animal's life, that's fairly middle to old age, like not bad, but they're LD50, half of them are already dead. The LD50 for both the ketogenic diet group and the Western diet who are supplementing with exogenous ketones has yet to be hit. Think about that for a moment. Has yet to be hit. We're at 24 months. We are at 24 months, and this study's still ongoing, and we have yet to hit the LD50 of when half of the amount of the animals that we started with really haven't died off yet. So that just puts it in perspective of what we're seeing. So we have right now, there's 6 animals who are still left that are alive in the ketogenic dieting group, 6 animals that are still left in the Western diet plus supplemental ketones group, and only 3 are still alive who are eating like a traditional, quote unquote, healthy American diet. So it's amazing, and there's going to be a ton more data that I hope we can pour in and get to you guys about. We're looking at everything from mitochondrial health to muscle mass to what's going on in their brain and all their different tissues. So it's really amazing. This is going to be an ongoing study for years and years and years to come. But it's amazing just kind of as we start seeing more of this data come back. It's fascinating to me to see some of that stuff. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. One of the things that I want to talk about is the importance of exercise, first and foremost. We have the Keto Innate coming up. I'm super excited about it. With all that travel, right? Like you think about people are like, I don't have time to work out. I really don't have time to make it to the gym. And that's completely fine. The thing is, when we say we don't have time, it just means it's not a priority. Like one of the things that I talk about and I implement into our guys is never tell me you don't have time. I hate that saying. I hate it. It's not that you don't have time. It's that it's not your priority. And some things should be prioritized over others, don't get me wrong. But people are like, you know what, I don't have time. You have time to go outside and walk for 10 minutes. Trust me. Like I can almost guarantee that at some point you have time to make 10 minutes to go outside and just go walk around. It's just not your priority. Instead, you want to watch Grey's Anatomy or I don't know what other shows are out there. Like make time. If it's going to be your priority, make time to go out after you're done with dinner. Go on a walk with your family. Go on a walk with your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or yourself and listen to a podcast. Like 10 minutes, 30 minutes out of your day, trust me, it can make the world of a difference. Not only for your body composition and what we're doing for other things, but just your mental state, right? Just getting outside itself, there's a lot of evidence that just getting outside, moving is extremely important. And that's one of the things we're going to harp on big time in this Keto NA challenge is we're going to be incorporating things like intermittent fasting or intermittent eating is what I like to refer to it as, the ketogenic diet, but also just movement, daily movement and getting up, moving around, not sitting all the time. It's killing me to be sitting in this chair right now when I want to be up and moving. At home, I just got a standing desk, so I love it. It's a game changer for me. But just getting out, moving every single day is so important. And we're going to be harping on tips and tools to help you get out, to move, incorporate things like resistance training, like using even just bands when you're at home to kind of do some movement. So I just want to go into that a little bit, guys. And movement's so critical. It's so important. It's a key aspect to just overall health and lifestyle. And it's one of the main reasons why, again, I'm super excited to go on this journey with you. And thank you for allowing me to go on the journey with you guys with this Keto NA challenge, because it's going to be super exciting. I'm excited to start it up. So with that, guys, I mean, shoot some questions in there. I'm going to mix up something that is pretty neat. Actually doesn't have a label on it, so I took that off so that way there was no sneak peeks of anything that we have going on in the works, but it'll be pretty cool. It'll be pretty cool. Let's see, what do we got? Some questions. Have we done research with endurance cyclists yet? Brad asks, have we done research with endurance cyclists? In our lab, we personally haven't done endurance cyclists yet. We've looked at fatigue, however. So Dr. Veach has done a lot of work with fatigue or with endurance cyclists, and there's plenty of research with exogenous ketones and endurance cyclists. But as far as fatigue, like one of the things that we looked at was if you supplement with exogenous ketones, like say I'm doing an all-out hard bout. We used a Wingate. So all out as hard as someone can go. It's a brutal high-intensity interval training protocol. And what we found is that the individuals who were supplementing with exogenous ketones didn't have the same perceived exertion. So their exertion wasn't as high when they supplemented with exogenous ketones compared to when they didn't. So their fatigue potentially is less when they're supplementing with exogenous ketones. So that's not only important for endurance athletes, but for just high-intensity interval training athletes, anyone that's interested in athletics itself, fatigue's a huge component. It's really why we tend to stop or we bail out. Oftentimes people go, oh, my muscles give out. Well, fatigue oftentimes is related to here. It's a central fatigue that often goes, our brain's telling us, hey, you should quit. Like, you shouldn't go anymore. But technically our muscles can, right? If you think about it, like if you were racing someone or you had someone pushing you or it was like a brutal situation, you're like, I have to do this. Your muscles could still do it, but the fatigue happens in our brain. And so potentially if ketones are working through that mechanism, it's possible that they're helping mitigate some of that fatigue. Let's see. Oh man, that is refreshing. That is refreshing. Oh man. All right, let's see. Have you done research with strength gain and maintenance on a ketogenic diet? Actually, we did. We just actually got our paper published with Dr. Dom, Dr. Jeff Volek, and I actually just wrote an article, kind of summary on it, about our research with the ketogenic diet. We found that individuals who were on a ketogenic diet were able to gain just as much muscle and lose more fat mass than individuals who are on a Western diet. So think about it. It was literally the first study that's ever been done. One of our really good colleagues and friends, Rachel Gregory, she did an amazing study in CrossFit athletes. So we get asked a lot at different conferences and events, what about CrossFit athletes? Is there a potential for that? So we looked at like resistance training, purely resistance training, bodybuilding style athletes. She looked at CrossFit athletes, and we both saw that they were able to gain just as much muscle and lose more fat and didn't have a decrement in performance. So really, really interesting stuff about that. So some people are asking about neurological conditions. So I had a really good talk yesterday. We had a really cool guest come and visit our lab yesterday as I flew back from Dallas. And they're doing a ton of great work with animals and the ketogenic diet. It's absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, some of the work they're doing with the ketogenic diet and animals. But we're talking about neurological conditions and kind of what it stems from. And when you look at things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or even traumatic brain injury, what we see in the literature and what we see in the brains of these individuals, say you take someone who's been playing in the NFL for 15 years, you can imagine the impact, the repeated impact over and over and over again that they're getting on their brain. If you were to take that person's brain out, slice open their head, take their brain out, and take someone with Alzheimer's and look at their brain, you would see a lot of similarities. Very similar structures. You'd see tau plaques build up, and when you actually give like glucose, there's an impaired ability to take up and utilize that glucose in both of those brains. So the thought process is, if you're able to, and I know Dr. Newport talks about this a lot, if you're able to then provide an alternative source of energy for the brain, could that overcome the deficit or the inability to utilize glucose? And that's really a fascinating area when you talk about any really neurological situation or even just improved cognitive function. Because oftentimes when we talk about like things like Alzheimer's or even just insulin resistance, we talk about diabetics or something along those lines, a lot of it stems from an inability to take up and utilize glucose effectively, right? If you're able to then provide an alternative fuel source that they are able to take up and utilize, then that potentially could overcome some of those deficits that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to achieve with just glucose itself. So that's an amazing, amazing area of research right now that's been ongoing, and I absolutely love it because I think it's got a ton of potential for not only where we are, but for where we're going. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh man, ketones as a recovery drink. Great question. Great question. I actually think there's a lot of potential with recovery. I actually want to do some more research specifically with exogenous ketones and seeing that, but we all know that ketones themselves, seem to have an anti-inflammatory effect. Well, what happens is that over time, as we work out, we tend to build up inflammation. And acutely, like right after the workout, that inflammation is important, right? Like when you go to the gym, you get to pump and you're like, yeah, that's great. I look huge. I look great. Part of that is inflammation. It's a buildup of water and fluid inside your cell. But you don't want that inflammation to kind of hang around. You don't want it to be lasting a long period of time. Well, if part of what that recovery process entails is lowering that inflammation, we know that ketones themselves tend to lower inflammation. Ketones act on one of the receptors, the NLRP3 inflammasome, which tends to lower inflammation. So technically, there seems to be a lot of mechanisms in which ketones can be beneficial for recovery from either an exercise bout or situations in which inflammation is high. So let's look at what else we got. What else? Coconut lime ketones, please. Interesting concept. Hopefully you guys will be able to taste it soon. It's delicious. So one of the questions I see here is, one of the things I see is that, what about serving sizes? So one of the amazing things I think that Pruvit's done is that in the sachets and even in the stick packets, there's a thing that I like. It's called flexible dosing. So flexible dosing, what does that mean, right? So basically, some people might be able to see a great effect with half a pack, right? Like if I were to take my cousin who might be 110 pounds, she's 110 pounds, she might be able to see a great effect with just a half packet. But someone like Tony Freeman, on the other hand, might need more, right? Like they might need 1.5, maybe 2 packs, maybe more to get the same effect as someone who's maybe only taking half. So that's where the flexible dosing is. It's going to vary by everyone, by every situation. It's going to depend on if you're on a low-carb ketogenic diet, if you're not on a low-carb ketogenic diet, and kind of how that fits into the whole realm. Part of it is the fact that if you've been on a ketogenic diet or you've been eating low carb, your cells and your tissues tend to take up glucose a lot more rapidly. So you take up and you utilize them a lot more efficiently than someone who maybe has been eating a super high carbohydrate or a super high sugar filled diet for a long period of time. So they might be able to get away with taking up more because their body's taking it in more. So that's something to keep in mind. One of the things I wanna harp on, because we get asked this question a lot and I see it popping up a little bit, is that people testing your blood ketones it's a good measure of what's available inside your blood. But what it doesn't tell you is how much is getting taken up into your tissue, which is a whole nother aspect. So sometimes people get discouraged. They go, oh, I drank an entire serving, and then 60 minutes later, I tested my blood and I only went from 0.3 to 0.7 millimoles. And they're like, you know what, my friend went to 1.1. Like, why is that the case? Why can't I get higher? It could just be that you're a better user. You're better at utilizing and taking up those ketones than your friend. That's really, really important, and I want you guys to keep that in mind, is that just because your levels aren't going so much higher and you're comparing to someone else, keep in mind everyone's individualized. Everyone's their own quote unquote experiment. And so I might be able to drink, I might take an entire pack and only go up 0.3 millimoles, whereas someone else might take an entire pack and go up 1.7 millimoles. Well, I've been eating low carb and ketogenic for a long period of time. So for that, my cells and my body and my tissues are able to take them up very rapidly, so it clears fast. That doesn't mean they're not working. That doesn't mean ketones aren't doing what they do, because ketones themselves are signaling molecules. They have a lot of different potential effects beyond just, oh, they're getting elevated in the blood. And you guys hear about that all the time at Keto Academies, and I know the next one's coming up sometime in September. But a lot of that information we talk about is all related to different effects that ketones themselves can have, and including the signaling aspects, where there's something known as HDAC signaling that ketones can do. So don't stress out if you're taking your blood and you're like, I'm not as high as my friend. Like, that's okay, that's fine. You could just be taking it up. Think about other things that you could be doing. Exercise itself. We had a conversation with Dr. Stephen Cunnane. Just walking just walking can increase ketone uptake. So that's why, again, going back to what I said earlier, movement and getting outside, even if it's just a 10-minute walk, that can help you take up and utilize ketones more so. Think about that. If I can get more ketones into my cells, into my tissue, what kind of impact can that now have versus someone who's just sitting around drinking them? There's a lot of different things to keep in mind in how movement and how your diet and how your lifestyle affects all of these different things, and that's again why I'm super excited to work with each and every one of you on the Keto and 8 challenge. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh man, that's so good. Ketones and exercise. Yes, ketones and exercise, super important to at least move. Get movement in, whether that's walking, whether that's resistance training, whether that's some type of cardio, whether that's swimming, playing with your kids. I mean, all that matters. All that can help with all that. So let's see, I'll take a couple more and then we will figure this out. Everyone wants to know what's in the shaker. You guys will find out hopefully in September. Maybe if you guys all come to the event, we might have some nice surprises for you guys there. Let's see, what else do we have? Is there any events? I think there's a Keto Academy's coming up in September. I believe that's in Las Vegas. So I'm super excited about that, to see you guys there. That's going to be an incredible event. Every single time I go to Keto Academies, I just get inspired to learn more and to be better and to come back here into the lab and do more research. And that's kind of what we're doing literally each and every day. I can't tell you how many blood strips and blood meters and urine strips that we've gone through just to test out so many different aspects of what we have going on here. So it's amazing, a huge contribution to everything that you guys are getting out and getting out to the community. So decent. So just to explain what I said earlier, I don't think some people go, oh, am I desensitized to ketones, or am I more sensitized to ketones? It doesn't mean that you're not sensitized. It just means that your body is taking them up differently, right? Your body is utilizing them and taking them up differently. So it's all individualized. Someone with more muscle might be taking it up and bringing into muscle more than someone who doesn't have as much muscle, or someone who has a little bit more weight than someone who doesn't. So someone's asking about what does it mean by ketones are a fuel source? So ketones themselves, think about this. So ketones themselves, we talk about 3 different macronutrients. We talk about fat, carbs, and proteins. Well, we kind of look at the 4th macronutrient is ketones, really. In a sense, they're their own macronutrient because they are such a unique energy source in that they provide energy to the brain, but they also provide brain to other tissues. In fact, the number one user, so to speak, of ketones not only is our brain, but is our heart. Our heart loves taking up and utilizing ketones. Some of the early studies that were done in like the 40s and 50s found that our heart loves and takes up ketones, and that was some of Dr. Veach's original work. And now we're seeing it can be transferred into more tissues like muscle mass and things like that. One last thing, I'll take a couple more questions, and then I want to touch on one last thing that people are bringing up. So what does it mean by macronutrients? So to explain macronutrients, and you guys will learn more about this in the Keto and 8. So like a ketogenic diet, and I'm sure most of you know this already, is a higher fat, right? I know here at Pruvit we're not afraid of fat. Fat is in. Fat is good. It's It's not a bad thing. So we're talking about a higher fat, low carbohydrate, and moderate amount of protein diet. So we're minimizing carbohydrates, and we're increasing fat intake. So fat, carbohydrates, and then a moderate amount of protein. Someone asked about electrolytes. Electrolytes are really important, especially during the adaptation process, and a lot of you will begin to experience this as you start altering your diet. So when people switch to a ketogenic diet, or they lower their carbohydrate intake, one of the things that we see a lot is that sometimes people experience the quote-unquote keto flu, and it's like, I have headaches, I don't feel well. Think about this. Your body has been reliant on glucose and carbohydrates for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, however old you are. That's how long your body's been relying on the fuel source, and now we're completely kind of switching the paradigm, removing that main fuel source and trying to provide an alternative source of energy. So for you to do that, your body's going through a significant change. I think ketones themselves can help bridge that gap. In part with that, one of the best parts about that is that electrolytes, things like sodium, like calcium, like magnesium, like potassium, all of those help bridge that gap as well. Because when we lower our carbohydrate intake, we tend to excrete or like urinate out more of these electrolytes than when we have a ton of carbohydrates. And the reason is because insulin's low, so we tend to excrete out things like sodium or magnesium. And so one of the biggest things, and I know some people are concerned about this, is that people are always like, oh, sodium's bad, and we're still in this paradigm where people perceive that sodium's a negative. I'd actually argue against that. Definitely for a ketogenic diet, you actually need more and more sodium than we traditionally recommend. But when you lower carbohydrate intake, you excrete sodium at such a rapid rate that you actually, it's recommended for people who are on a ketogenic diet to actually increase their sodium intake. It's funny when Dr. Wilson and I go out to restaurants, when we go out to restaurants, people are like, what are you doing? Like, why are you grabbing the salt? And I'm like, I'm putting salt on my vegetables and whatever, my steak. And they're like, what are you, are you kidding? I'm like, nope, I'm fine. I'll be A-okay. No worries here. I'll be good. Don't worry about it. I'm like, what you shouldn't be doing is putting salt on your French fries that you got as a side dish with your cheeseburger. Yeah, that's probably not good. But for me, because I'm lowering my carbohydrate intake, I'm taking it in context. That's where sodium shouldn't be looked at as a negative. So, oops, blocking that. I'll answer one more, and then we'll head out. So one of the things that we found, because someone asked about brown fats. Someone asked about brown fat and how exogenous ketones can be taken in context with a ketogenic diet. And that's something that I know gets brought up a lot. Oftentimes people will go, I'm on a ketogenic diet, I make ketones myself. That's referred to, and Rob DeBoer talks about this a lot, endogenous ketones. So endo means made within. Endogenous ketones are what we make when our body's on a ketogenic diet. Exogenous ketones, exo means taken from outside. It's you're drinking, drinking exogenous ketones. There's a difference between the two, but we actually did a study where we looked at animals who were either on a Western diet, a ketogenic diet, or a ketogenic diet plus exogenous ketones. Western diet, ketogenic diet plus exogenous ketones. And what we found was that we looked at something known as feed efficiency. So you've all heard of someone who looks at a piece of cake and they gain 5 pounds, right? You look at a piece of cake and you're like, oh my gosh, I step on a scale, I'm 5 pounds heavier, right? They are very efficient at storing calories. We all know the same person that can eat not only a piece of cake, but they'll eat the entire cake and the next morning they'll wake up leaner. And it's frustrating. You're like, how is that possible? How are you able to eat all that and you're still leaner, right? So they have a very low efficiency. They're not efficient at storing calories. And what we found was that from the Western diet to the ketogenic diet plus exogenous ketones, feed efficiency went down in a linear manner, which means that the Western diet was very efficient at storing calories. So everything that they ate, they tended to store, which isn't necessarily bad. But then the ketogenic diet plus exogenous ketones had the lowest efficiency. So they're eating the same amount of food, but they're storing less of it. Think about that. Same amount of food, but they're storing less of it. That's what feed efficiency truly is all about. And so we wanted to look at, like, why is this the case? How is this possible that they have a lower feed efficiency than those who are on the animals that were on a Western diet? Well, we looked at something known as brown fat. And if you look up brown fat, you even just Google brown fat. Kids, when we're babies, we tend to have a lot of brown fat. Or people who live in like really cold climates. We don't have as much today because we have heaters and people wear jackets all the time. But people who live in like extremely cold climates tend to have higher amounts of brown fat. Brown fat it's what we call thermogenically active tissue. So it's active. It's a type of fat we want. It's weird to say that, but like we want brown fat. We don't want white fat. So white fat is what we store. It's what you see like when people are walking around with bellies and things like that. Like a lot of that's white fat. We don't want that. Brown fat, on the other hand, is good in the sense that it's not really efficient at storing calories, so it burns very fast. We found that from the Western diet to the ketogenic diet plus exogenous ketones, brown fat went up in a linear manner. So that could be why ketones on top of the ketogenic diet could be extremely beneficial. And that's why I'm super excited about this Keto NA, incorporating all of them together, right? Exercise, plus getting our nutrition on point, plus supplementing with exogenous ketones. I really think we're gonna optimize and maximize everyone's full potential with this. So with that being said, guys, as always, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. Thank you for allowing me to join you guys in the Keto N8. I'm excited to do it with everyone and to be a part of it. And if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to hit us up on the Pruvit Facebook page, and in the Keto N8 we'll be answering questions each and every day, every single week, giving you guys tips and tools to help you guys live a healthy and well formulated and optimal lifestyle, guys. Thank you guys. Can't wait to see you guys again. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.